Hello and welcome to this edition of Jamaica Magazine. I'm your host, Adrian Atkinson. As usual, we have a wonderful show planned just for you. Stay tuned.
Healing begins within. Take a moment for yourself. Healing is a journey. Start yours today.
More in 2024. That was the Ministry of Tourism's mantra this past year. Words that proved to be true with the accomplishments recorded during the period. In this week's Get the Facts, we are joined by tourism boss, the Honorable Edmund Bartlett. Let's listen in.
Welcome to Get the Facts, the program that provides you with information on the latest topics. I'm Theodore Henry. 2024 was an extraordinary year for tourism in Jamaica. From record-breaking arrivals to innovative policies and initiatives, our island continues to shine as a top global destination. Now, here to speak on how the government is working to strengthen our position as the Caribbean's premier destination and much more is Minister of Tourism Edmund Bartlett. Welcome to Get the Facts, Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Henry.
All right, let's jump right into it. Now, numbers and figures. The island's forecast for 2024 was 4.58 million visitors, 9.6% increase in earnings. We're talking like about $4.38 billion. So by any stretch of the imagination, the sector is performing very well. Do I have that right?
Well, you have it right from the point of view of the performance of the sector in terms of the actual outturn for 24 against projections. We are below that because of 6 months of disruptions, led by burial, and then we had the supply chain disruptions as it affected aviation in particular. So we had 68,000 less seats into Jamaica, which meant that there was a natural reduction in the projected arrivals. And then, of course, there was issues, geopolitical issues like travel advisories and so on and so forth, which impacted us. So we had that, but tourism, as you know, is resilient. And notwithstanding those disruptions, we are coming out of the year with a small increase in arrivals. But the earnings is in line with what we projected of the 4.3 billion. We will have 4.3 billion, but we'll have 4.2 something million visitors instead of the 4.5 that we had projected.
Right. Now, Minister, the Jamaican public does not know you as a man who rests on his laurels, right? So we meet this figure, we meet that figure, we exceed that figure. You're always seeming to push the industry further. What plans are?
So exactly. Yeah. So for winter now.
Okay.
And winter begins essentially 2025.
Sure.
January 2025. This projection for this winter will be strongest that we've had. And that's based on the number of seats. We go back to aviation because that's the heart of it.
Got to get here.
Island state.
Right.
That's what we use to get here.
Right.
And so we have 1.6 million seats for this winter, the largest amount ever. Assuming an 80% load factor, that is to say, the plane is coming 80% full.
Right.
We would bring 1.3 million visitors in that space, and that's a 12.9% increase over last year. So the winter is strong. The income from that, of course, goes in line. Winter is the strongest period for earnings in tourism.
Yes.
The ADRs are the highest during that period. And so we anticipate a very strong first quarter of 2025. And that will set the pace for the rest of 25, providing, of course, there aren't any other weather, mainly weather distractions and disruptions, as we call it.
Yeah.
But the key in all of this is that you build capacity to respond effectively to disruptions.
Yeah.
And that's resilience and that's what has become a guiding principle for tourism management in Jamaica, resilience. You remember I established the Global Tourism Resilience and
Right.
Crisis Management Center
Right.
at the University of the West Indies in 2018. And that has been, a key think tank which offers young people and others an opportunity to look at disruptions and to understand them and to be able to predict disruptions, but to mitigate, again, to manage disruptions when they come and to recover quickly.
Yeah.
And then to grow. So it seemed a whole process,
Yeah.
but it is. And Jamaica has led the world in that.
Right.
And I mean, whatever else there is by way of legacy, that stands out, that Jamaica is the thought leader in the world on tourism resilience.
So not just to react, but to prepare for it in advance if
Absolutely.
something happens. But we've been talking about seats and those who are coming, and I'd like to zoom in on those who are here, the workers. And in the intro, we mentioned how there were some pretty interesting policy changes, and you spoke about also the finances, and I want to zoom in on one. Now, there's a recent decision to remove taxes from tips for tourism workers, and it's been welcomed by them. And I want to find out what's the thinking behind that, and how do we see that moving the needle in terms of tourism workers having a better time financially?
Right. So the policy decision around that is connected more with gratuities and the requirement for gratuities to be paid in full to the line workers of the tourism industry.
Wait, Minister,
because
just define gratuity for
exactly.
us.
The, the gratuity is really a service charge that the visitors pay for the rooms.
Ah, okay.
So it isn't a charge based on any consumption pattern or indeed any actual action on the part of workers. It is like the Tourism Enhancement Fund, which you pay before you even arrive.
Right.
So the whole purpose of that was to enhance the take-home pay for the workers, because tourism by its very nature has a high level of casual workers. And labor is very extensive in the tourism. It's a highly labor-intensive activity. So the way to look at how reorganize the tourism labor market arrangement is a challenge that we are taking up.
Right.
And that's going to help to change the way in which remuneration of the tourism worker is structured and arranged, and the whole ecosystem around, the worker and the hotels and other tourism entities. Because, as you know, hotels are not the only places where tourism workers are.
And we need to talk about
Exactly, they're all over. And
Right.
So looking at that as a subset, is one element, but then there's a bigger picture that we also have to look at. So I think there is some consensus around this, because this will certainly assist in enabling a better general. Not every worker would benefit directly because of how you're structured and where you are in the totem pole, so to speak, right?
Right.
But the vast majority of those who are working in the hotels, because again, as I say, the largest majority portion of the workers are at the lower income levels.
Right. Minister, you mentioned that not all tourism happens at hotels, and we are going to talk about that. But right now, we're going to take a break, and we're continuing the discussion with Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett on the other side of the break. So please, stay with us.
All children deserve positive parenting. Why not pamper us? Be patient with us. Make time to teach us, and of course, play with us. Celebrate milestones with us, and don't forget to be our #1 supporter. Do all these things and practice positive parenting today.
Welcome back to Get the Facts. We are continuing our discussion with the Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Edmund Bartlett. Minister Bartlett, let's pick up on that idea that tourism shouldn't just be focused on hotels. Jamaica is a tourist nation. So many visitors arrive and they want to explore rural areas. They want to actually go into the towns, just live and walk up and down and explore Jamaica. What plans are there to encourage that sort of tourism?
Right. So remember now, tourism is everything that's around you. It's not a discrete area of activity.
Yeah.
And almost everything that we do in Jamaica forms part of the asset base that Jamaica has and becomes part of the general area of consumption for visitors.
Right.
So the air you breathe, you know, the flora and fauna around you, you know, your hills and mountains, your caves and your riverine experiences, waterways and so on, your beaches, you know.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the actual outcome of your culture, which is the material translation of your cultural ideas and thoughts, you know, in terms of the curios and the art and your craft and your food and the various applications of the Jamaican flora, which has perhaps 3,000 different species of plants with capacity for conversion for nutraceutical values. All of these are part of what makes people come to Jamaica and constitutes tourism. So the hotels, as I said earlier, is merely a small part of it. In fact, we have, I think, just about 60 or so thousand workers in the hotel subsector itself, out of 175,000 workers in the tourism immediate space, and then another 200 or so thousand who benefit substantially from supplying to tourism and also from the general consumption pattern of visitors in their space. So the overall impact of tourism reaches close to 500,000 people in Jamaica, right?
Okay.
Direct, indirect, and induced.
Yes.
And it impacts the economy, you know, in a broad way. Somewhere closer to 30% of the GDP is about tourism-related activities. So to find a way to ensure that the infrastructure is there to facilitate the activities of people who come to Jamaica from one end of the island to the other is part of the challenge. And it is tied into public order, it is tied into security management.
Transportation.
It is tied into transportation, foreseeableness, and more importantly, it is also tied into your public health arrangements. So that all of these are key contributory factors to enable us to have a facility for seamless movement across the island, for health security as you move, and for what we call in the broadest term, destination assurance.
Destination assurance. I've always loved that term. But Minister, we're down into the last few minutes of this interview, and I just want to ask you. So, you've mentioned diversifying beyond just the sun, sea, and sand. You mentioned the nutraceutical plants, so health tourism, community-based tourism, food tourism. Jamaican food is loved around the world. And all of these are plans that the ministry is putting their shoulder against to increase in 2025?
Yes, through the linkages network that we established. And if you recall, in 2016, when I established the KPIs, right, the 5 by 5 by 5.
Right.
That is to get 5 million visitors, earn $5 billion in 5 years.
5 years, yes.
And so we review all of that in 2020 after COVID. And so 2025 is the magic year. And just to report to the country on the performance of that KPI is that we know 4.3 arrivals, 4.3 billion US. And we're in the 4th year. So we're going into the 5th year, and we have 2,000 new rooms, and already we are reporting in terms of increased airlift. So we are on track to achieve our 5 by 5 by 5 in 25. So we say we're going to be alive.
We're going to be alive in 2025. In a real sense, this might sound strange to say, but to make Jamaica international.
Yes.
In all aspects.
And absolutely, but more importantly, to build the economy.
Build the economy.
Because the flow-through effect of the tourism dollar in the economy is heightened by the number of people who actually come into your destination.
Yeah.
Because they create demand. And that demand now is to be fulfilled by a myriad of economic activities in agriculture, in manufacturing, in transport, in health, in finance, in energy, you name it.
The
whole
picture.
picture.
Well, thank you so much. A big thank you to your minister. I wish we had more time to actually go down into this conversation.
Since we are going to be alive in 25.
So you'll be back. All right, you have shared some very valuable insights today, and it's clear that 2025 holds incredible potential for Jamaica, not just in terms of visitor arrivals, but also in sustainability, community development, and worker support.
And visitor spend.
And visitor spend.
Very important.
We thank you for watching as well, and until next time, I'm Theodore Henry. We were talking to Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Edmund Bartlett. Thank you for joining us on Get the Facts.
Are you protected? We're speaking about consumers and their access to information that is not only safe, but it's accurate, and it can be trusted. We're talking about data protection, e-commerce, online banking, and online fraud. The question is whether or not you can trust it. You're thinking about identity theft. You're thinking about where your documents are stored, and whether or not this can also impact you from a credit perspective. You are to get one free credit report each year. Do not waste that resource. Look at it, see how you can address whatever issues it might be pointing to, whether or not it is true, yea or nay. Ask questions and seek assistance whenever possible. Do not be afraid. Ask the questions. If you are unsure, sometimes we're doing something and we get a little gut feeling and you want to draw back. Do some more investigation to see whether or not this is something that you want to undertake, or whether or not it will affect you in a negative light.
I'm trying to think of a more apt analogy that signifies life and new beginnings. Can you? For now, I'm going with trees. The usefulness of an overgrown plant serves more than just the purposes of shade or lumber. Trees provide food and fuel the environment. And if you don't know, okay, we're going to tell you. Watch this.
Trees are often considered the lungs of the earth. As part of their life cycle, they take in carbon dioxide and release oxygen into the atmosphere. Let's all continue this necessary part of keeping our planet healthy by planting more trees. And here's how you do it. First things first, decide what tree you will be planting. Is it one that will provide timber? Shade? Will it beautify your space, or will you be eating its fruits? Once that's settled, you need to consider what kind of conditions it would need to grow. Naturally, some plants do better in some areas than others, while others need full exposure to sunlight versus those that can survive without direct light. And there's also the soil type to consider. Some trees thrive near seasides. Others prefer mountain areas, while certain trees are content in the valleys. Next up, space. Some trees grow wide, others tall. While you may be able to prune trees to keep them under control, some lose their essence when tamed. So, be sure to plant large trees in areas where they will have adequate space to grow. If you have a smaller space, consider growing a smaller tree that requires less pruning to keep it in check. Then there's the matter of your fully grown tree posing a threat to nearby structures. As a country situated in the hurricane belt, downed trees during times of disaster is a part of our reality. There's also the pesky issue of trees which shed their leaves profusely, and others with copious amounts of flowers and fruits, which might just be the cause of a dispute with your neighbor if planted near the fence. That being said, be sure to plant trees at a safe distance from walls, power lines, fences, sidewalks, and the very foundation of your house. Once you've considered all those tips, it's time to plant.
First step is to dig a hole, right? Not too deep, about a foot and a half, not too wide either, because you're not burying the plant. You're trying to provide a nice area for it to grow, right? Upon digging your hole, if you notice that the soil type is clay, that is the kind of coarse soil type, you probably need topsoil, right? Because when you're putting back the soil, it's going to be a challenge for you. But after that, you dampen the soil, ensure that it's moist, provide a moist area or environment for the plant to be planted in. Ensure the plant is in the center of the hole. If you dig the hole a bit too deep, there's a process known as backfilling, right? That's when you put back the dirt into the soil to a certain height that is much favorable for you and for the plant. After you do that, you want to dampen the soil, right? Ensure the plant is in the center, because you end up having a plant to grow lean or to the side, because plants grow into the direction of the sunlight. Ensure that the soil goes up to the root collar. Now the root collar is where the stem and the root of the plant or the root plug meet, right? You don't want to go above that. Once you do finish that, you water it, then you stake it. When I say stake, you take either a bamboo stake or a regular stake, put a flagging tape beside onto it and put it beside the plant. That is you marking the plant. So once you're doing any maintenance, you yourself or any other individual in the area can know that, hey, there's something planted there, so you don't end up wasting your effort and time when planting. The most important thing is watering after and nurturing the plants. So you water early mornings and late evenings. If you water in between those times, especially in the afternoons, the plant will end up struggling with the intake of the water, right? Because the sun is going to be evaporating at the same time it's trying to take in the nutrients. You can also mulch, fertilize, or add kaya dust or sawdust to the mound to help lock in moisture for the plant.
And there you have it, a step-by-step demonstration of how to plant a tree. Call 876-618-3205 or visit 173 Constant Spring Road to get your plant seedlings. Happy planting!
With just a touch,
With just a swipe, our youth are now able to learn on any device.
With the help of UNICEF's Technical Working Group and the Ministry of Education and Youth Special Education Unit, our young people now have access to digital textbooks. The Universal Design for Learning (UDL) methodology, which is central to accessible digital textbooks (ADT), has allowed for the venture to take root. The first 2 fully accessible books were released in late September 2022 to allow for greater inclusion of students with disabilities. Now this time around, all students will have access to high-quality, interactive digital textbooks in a variety of languages, including Jamaican Sign Language.
We are very happy to see technology transforming education, particularly in areas where children did not have the accessibility. The integration of technology into education is the next frontier. There is a fear that somehow technology, with all its advancements in artificially developing intelligence, could replace or minimize the role of the teacher. That is absolutely not the case when it comes to education. It means that the teacher now has a more powerful tool with which they can exercise their duties. And of course, you know, it introduces new challenges into the classroom, right? But it also introduces greater opportunities for engagement.
My name is Ari Jones and I am from Danny Williams School for the Deaf.
Ari and others have access to 2 books that were transformed into ADT format for the Jamaican pilot using UDL principles, My Brain is My Boss, and Harriet Hen and the Hawk. Little Harry is using the My Brain is My Boss ADT book to help him grasp the relationship between the brain and the body.
In this effort, we are working to make sure that no one is left behind, and the population that is in our most concern is the disability population. As you know, we have a lot of barriers in the country for this population to enter to the education system yet. But I want to have the opportunity to congratulate the government for the recent passed Disability Act, which paved the way for this population to really have their rights granted in the country.
The Disabilities Act came into effect on February 14, 2022. This followed its approval in 2014 and the affirmation of the Disabilities Regulations in 2021.
Pleased to have been the second person to receive the National ID card. The title is more than just your certificate of ownership. This next chapter is Aspire Jamaica.
And with that, we've come to the end of today's show. To catch a repeat of this or any other, feel free to log on to our website, gis.gov.jm. Until next time, I'm Adrian Atkinson. Do take care.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.